The transport crate rattled violently. Inside it, something growled. Low. Weak. Tired. The sound echoed through the polished landing bay of Orbital Research Station Atlas, where the first official cultural exchange between humanity and the Vakesh Coalition was about to conclude. Alien diplomats stood in a neat semicircle beside the cargo platform, their tall armored frames illuminated by the cold white lights of the station. Humans stood opposite them. Scientists. Security officers. Translators. Everyone expected something impressive. Something symbolic. After all, the Vakesh were famous across several star systems for breeding the most dangerous predator beasts known to civilization. Creatures used for war. Creatures used for hunting. Creatures capable of tearing through powered armor. But the crate in front of them looked old. Scratched metal. Warning symbols partially worn away. The growl from inside sounded less like a threat and more like a dying engine. One of the alien diplomats clicked his mandibles impatiently. This is the final specimen prepared for cultural transfer, the translator drone announced in smooth human English. Dr. Marcus Carter, head xenobiologist for the station, folded his arms. Specimen? He asked. Another alien stepped forward. Its armored plates shifted as it spoke. A Vakesh feline predator. Several human security officers straightened immediately. Even weak Vakesh felines were extremely dangerous. Why give us a predator? One scientist whispered. The diplomat's response was simple. A symbol of trust. Then he nodded toward the crate. Open it. The mechanical locks released with a heavy metallic click. The lid slowly lifted. Everyone leaned forward. Inside the crate, something moved. Slowly. Painfully. The creature that emerged was not what anyone expected. It was a feline shape, yes. But thin. Too thin. Its ribs were faintly visible beneath patchy black fur. Its breathing came in shallow, strained movements. One of its eyes was half closed. The creature tried to rise. It managed halfway before collapsing back onto the metal floor of the crate. The room fell silent. That wasn't a fearsome predator. That was a dying animal. Dr. Carter frowned. This thing is sick. The alien diplomat responded without emotion. It is defective. The translator repeated the word clearly. Defective. Several humans exchanged uncomfortable looks. The creature slowly lifted its head. Golden eyes scanned the room. Sharp. Alert. Still dangerous despite its weakness. Instinctively, several security officers stepped back. Even injured predators could kill. Why bring it here? Dr. Carter asked. The alien diplomat answered coldly. It is unsuitable for Vakesh service. So you gave it to us. It would have been terminated otherwise. A quiet murmur spread through the human observers. Some were annoyed. Some were confused. But one person was simply staring. A young girl stood near the observation railing. Her name was Emily Carter. She was 12 years old. And she had been sitting quietly beside her father during the entire diplomatic ceremony. But now she was standing, looking directly at the creature. Her father noticed immediately. Emily, stay back. But she didn't move. The creature's golden eye focused on her. Slowly. Carefully. Like a hunter studying something unfamiliar. Dr. Carter stepped forward and gently grabbed her arm. Emily, that animal is dangerous. But Emily wasn't scared. Instead she asked the alien something no one else had. Why is it sick? The alien diplomats looked confused. It is weak, one replied. Genetic failure. It will likely die soon. Emily looked back at the creature. The predator tried to stand again. Its legs shook. It collapsed. For a moment its head dropped against the metal crate floor. Exhausted. Emily frowned. Then she did something that made every security officer tense instantly. She pulled her arm free from her father's grip. And walked toward the crate. Emily. But she was already there. The creature watched her approach. Its body tensed slightly. A low rumble vibrated in its throat. Not loud. Not aggressive. Just, uncertain. Emily slowly knelt beside the crate. Everyone in the room froze. A Vakesh feline could remove a human arm in less than a second. But Emily didn't seem worried. She looked at the creature for several quiet seconds. Then she spoke softly. You're not defective. The creature's ear twitched. Emily carefully reached forward. Security officers lifted their weapons slightly. Dr. Carter held his breath. The girl placed her small hand gently on the creature's head. The predator froze. For one long moment, nothing happened. Then something no one expected occurred. The creature leaned into her hand. Slowly. Carefully. Its eyes closed halfway. And a deep vibration filled the landing bay. A sound that rolled through the metal floor and echoed off the station walls. The creature was purring. The alien diplomats stared in disbelief. Vakesh predators did not show affection. They did not submit. They did not bond. But the dying creature inside the crate pressed its head against the human girl's hand like it had known her forever. Emily smiled softly. Behind her, the room remained completely silent. Because in that quiet moment, no one realized they were witnessing the beginning of something that would one day change the balance of power in the galaxy. The medical bay smelled like disinfectant and warm circuitry. Machines hummed quietly while scanners floated above the reinforced containment enclosure in the center of the room. Inside it, the alien predator slept. Barely. The Vakesh feline's breathing was shallow, each inhale slow and strained. Its ribs rose and fell beneath thin black fur that looked dull under the medical lights. Several human doctors stood around the observation console studying the readings. None of them looked optimistic. Dr. Marcus Carter rubbed his tired eyes as the diagnostic scan finished. Metabolic collapse, one of the technicians said quietly. Organ strain across multiple systems. Another doctor shook his head. Even if it survives the week, its growth plates are damaged. Its immune system is barely functioning. The conclusion was obvious. The creature wasn't just sick. It was dying. The Vakesh diplomats had known that. They had given humanity a dying animal. A symbolic gesture. A disposable gift. Across the room, Emily Carter sat cross-legged on the floor beside the enclosure. She had been there for almost 3 hours. A small tablet rested in her lap while she quietly read from a children's novel, occasionally glancing up at the creature through the reinforced glass. The predator's golden eye opened slowly. It looked directly at her. Emily smiled. Hey, Nova. The name had appeared suddenly the day before. When the doctors asked what she planned to call the alien feline, Emily had answered immediately. Nova. Because stars were born from violent explosions, and sometimes the brightest ones came from things that almost died. At first the doctors protested. You shouldn't name it, one had warned. It may not survive long. Emily had simply shrugged. Then it shouldn't be alone. The Vakesh feline slowly lifted its head. It was still weak, but something had changed. It moved when Emily spoke. Its ears turned toward her voice. Its breathing steadied whenever she sat nearby. The scientists had noticed. The data logs clearly showed that the creature's heart rate stabilized in her presence. Its stress levels dropped. Its neurological activity increased. Which made no sense. Because according to the Vakesh diplomatic records, these predators were solitary war beasts bred for aggression. They weren't supposed to form bonds. Dr. Carter leaned against the console and watched his daughter through the glass. You should be doing homework, he said gently. Emily looked up. I did it already. He raised an eyebrow. All of it? Yes. She pointed at the enclosure. She hasn't eaten much today. Dr. Carter sighed. Emily, the creature's body might not be able to process food normally. Emily looked back at Nova. The predator slowly blinked at her. Then its head lowered again. Weak. Tired. Emily stood up. I want to try feeding her again. One of the medical technicians hesitated. Emily, that animal could still be dangerous. Nova opened one golden eye at the sound of the word dangerous. Emily walked to the containment door. She won't hurt me. Dr. Carter watched the creature closely. Nova didn't growl. Didn't show its claws. Instead its tail shifted slightly against the enclosure floor. A calm movement. He exhaled slowly. All right, he said. But I'm staying right here. The containment door slid open with a soft mechanical hiss. Emily stepped inside. Nova immediately raised her head. The difference was obvious. Moments earlier the predator had looked half asleep. Now its attention was sharp. Focused entirely on the small human approaching. Emily sat beside her and placed a small bowl of nutrient paste near Nova's mouth. Come on, she said softly. You have to eat. For several seconds the creature didn't move. Then Nova sniffed the bowl. Slowly. Cautiously. She looked up at Emily. Their eyes met. Then the predator began to eat. Outside the enclosure, the medical staff exchanged surprised glances. She hasn't eaten that much in 2 days, one whispered. Dr. Carter nodded slowly. Nova finished the bowl. Then she did something even stranger. She leaned forward and gently rested her head against Emily's shoulder. The girl giggled. That tickles. The predator made a soft rumbling sound again. Not a growl. Not quite the purr they had heard in the landing bay. Something deeper. Comforting. Over the next few weeks, Emily came to the medical bay every day. After school. After dinner. Sometimes early in the morning before her father's shifts began. She read books beside Nova. Talked to her. Brushed her slowly growing fur. And little by little, the dying predator began to change. Her breathing strengthened. Her muscles filled out. The dull patches of fur were replaced by sleek black strands that shimmered under the station lights. Her golden eyes grew brighter. Stronger. More aware. But the most surprising change appeared in the medical scans. One evening, Dr. Carter stared at the latest genetic results in complete silence. "This can't be right," he murmured. Another scientist leaned over his shoulder. "What is it?" Dr. Carter zoomed in on the analysis. The genetic markers inside Nova cells didn't match the standard Vakesh predator genome. Entire sequences were different. Mutated. Enhanced. Adaptive. The creature wasn't weak. It was something else entirely. Something rare. Something that the Vakesh themselves might not even understand. Behind them, inside the enclosure, Nova stretched slowly. Her once fragile body had already doubled in strength. Her claws extended slightly against the floor. Sharp. Perfect. And when Emily entered the room that evening, Nova stood up immediately. Waiting for her. Watching her. Protecting her. The scientists didn't know it yet. But the defective creature the aliens had discarded was growing into something far more dangerous than anyone had ever intended. And it had already chosen exactly who it belonged to. 6 months later, the creature that once lay dying in a cargo crate barely resembled the fragile animal the aliens had abandoned. Nova had grown. A lot. She now stood nearly as tall as Emily when on all fours. Her body had lengthened, muscles flowing beneath sleek black fur that shimmered like polished obsidian under the station lights. Her tail alone was nearly 2 meters long. Every movement she made was smooth. Controlled. Precise. The weak, trembling predator that once struggled to stand had transformed into something powerful. Something magnificent. But what truly unsettled the scientists studying Nova wasn't just her size. It was her intelligence. Inside the research station's habitat chamber, Nova moved through a complex obstacle course designed for advanced xenobiology testing. Floating drones darted around her. Laser markers tracked her reaction time. Moving barriers shifted unpredictably. Nova didn't just react. She predicted. She leapt over rotating platforms before they completed their movement. She intercepted drones before their attack routines finished calculating. She navigated shifting terrain faster than the AI system could adapt. One of the scientists stared at the monitor. "That's impossible." Dr. Carter folded his arms as Nova landed silently on a platform and stared directly at the observation window. "Her neural response time is off the charts," another researcher whispered. "And look at the tactical adaptation rate." The simulation reset again. This time the system increased the difficulty level. Nova sat down. She looked bored. Then Emily entered the chamber. Immediately Nova stood up. Her tail swayed slowly. Emily waved. "Hi, Nova." The massive predator padded across the room with quiet, controlled steps. The observation deck filled with tension. Even after months of study, the researchers still couldn't fully relax around the creature. One swipe of those claws could tear through steel plating. But Nova ignored everyone else. She walked straight to Emily and lowered her head. Emily scratched behind her ears. Nova immediately began purring. A deep, rumbling vibration filled the room. The tension disappeared. Even the nervous security officer at the door relaxed slightly. Dr. Carter sighed. "I still can't believe this works." Another scientist nodded. "Whatever bond they formed, it's real." Emily climbed onto Nova's back like she had done dozens of times before. Nova adjusted her stance carefully, balancing the girl without effort. They moved together slowly through the habitat chamber. Not predator and handler. More like companions. But far beyond the research station, trouble was already approaching. 3 pirate vessels slipped quietly through the outer sensor grid of the system. They had been watching the station for weeks. Listening to transmissions. Studying patrol routes. They weren't interested in diplomacy. They wanted alien specimens. Rare biological assets sold for millions of credits on black markets across multiple sectors. And rumors had begun spreading about a mysterious predator kept on Atlas Station. A rare Vakesh beast. The pirates wanted it. Their boarding craft attached silently to one of the station's maintenance ports. Explosive bolts cut through the outer hatch. Moments later, armed raiders flooded the corridor. They moved quickly, disabling security cameras, jamming communication signals, neutralizing the small patrol teams stationed in the outer ring. Inside the research wing, the first alarms began to sound. Red lights flashed across the corridor ceilings. Emergency sirens echoed through the station. Dr. Carter looked up sharply. That's not a drill. The station's security system activated immediately. Doors began sealing. Defense protocols came online. But the pirates were already inside. They moved through the corridors with practiced efficiency. Their scanners guided them toward the biological containment wing. Toward Nova. Inside the habitat chamber, Nova froze. Her ears twitched. Her head turned toward the hallway. The rumble in her chest stopped. Emily noticed immediately. What's wrong? Nova's body lowered slightly. Her muscles tightened. Her golden eyes narrowed. She wasn't confused. She was listening. Something moved far down the corridor. Heavy boots. Metal scraping. Weapons charging. Dr. Carter's communicator crackled. Security breach confirmed. Multiple hostile boarders in the research sector. The scientists began moving quickly. Lock down the containment area. Get the civilian personnel out. Dr. Carter grabbed Emily's shoulder. We need to go. But Nova didn't move. She was staring at the doorway. The predator's instincts were already awake. The lights suddenly flickered. Then went out. Emergency power engaged. Dim red lights filled the chamber. From the hallway outside came shouting. Boots running. Metal doors slamming open. The pirates had reached the research wing. Emily clutched Nova's fur nervously. Nova's tail flicked once. Twice. Then she slipped into the shadows at the far side of the chamber. Silent. Invisible. Watching. 3 pirates burst through the security door seconds later. They were large. Heavily armed. Their armor covered in black market insignias. One of them laughed. Jackpot. They looked around the darkened habitat chamber. One pirate lifted his scanner. It's here somewhere. Behind them, something moved. Fast. Silent. The first pirate barely had time to turn. A black shape exploded from the darkness. There was a flash of claws. A scream. Then silence. The other 2 spun around. What the? Something hit the ceiling above them. They fired wildly. But their shot struck empty air. Then the second pirate vanished. Dragged into the darkness with a choking cry. The final raider backed toward the door, breathing fast. What kind of monster is this? The red emergency lights flickered again. Behind him, 2 golden eyes appeared in the shadows. Calm. Focused. Watching. Nova stepped forward slowly. The pirate dropped his weapon. And ran. Because he had just realized the horrifying truth. They hadn't boarded a station containing a predator. They had boarded the territory of one. And Nova was already hunting. The pirate attack lasted less than 9 minutes. By the time the station's security teams fully secured the research wing, the corridors were already silent again. Emergency lights flickered above scattered weapons and damaged equipment. 3 pirate raiders had entered the habitat sector. None of them left. Security officers moved cautiously through the hallway, rifles raised. Dr. Carter followed close behind them, his heart still racing. Emily, he called. From the far end of the corridor, a familiar voice answered. I'm here. Relief washed over him as he rushed toward the habitat chamber. Inside, Emily sat calmly on the floor beside Nova. The massive black feline lay curled around her protectively. Her tail flicked lazily as if nothing unusual had happened. Dr. Carter stopped at the doorway. You're okay? Emily nodded. Nova scared them away. One of the security officers slowly stepped inside, eyes wide. Scorch marks and claw gouges covered the chamber walls. Fragments of pirate armor lay scattered across the floor. The officer stared at Nova. That thing did all this. Nova lifted her head and looked at him. The officer instinctively stepped back. Dr. Carter studied the damage carefully. Every strike was precise. Efficient. Controlled. The pirates hadn't stood a chance. Within hours, the station uploaded the security footage to the Interstellar Council network. What happened next shocked half the galaxy. Governments replayed the footage thousands of times. Every movement of the Black Predator was analyzed frame by frame. Military analysts studied Nova's speed. Combat strategists examined her attack patterns. Xenobiologists examined her physiology. And the results made everyone uneasy. Nova moved faster than most autonomous combat drones. Her reaction time exceeded elite military implants. Her strength allowed her to tear through reinforced armor with ease. But what frightened analysts most was something else. Her behavior. Nova hadn't attacked randomly. She had waited. Observed. Studied her targets before striking. Every movement was tactical. Calculated. Like a trained soldier. Except Nova had never been trained. Across several alien worlds, members of the Vakesh coalition watched the recordings in stunned silence. The creature on the screen looked familiar. Too familiar. An elderly Vakesh genetic archivist leaned forward slowly. Paused the footage. The video froze on Nova mid-movement. Her body twisted through the air with impossible agility. The archivist stared at the genetic patterns visible through the scan overlays. His breathing slowed. "This cannot be correct," he whispered. Another official turned toward him. "What do you see?" The archivist enlarged the biological scan. Hidden deep inside Nova's genetic code were sequences that hadn't appeared in centuries. Ancient evolutionary markers. Dormant traits believed to be extinct. The archivist spoke quietly. "This is not a defective specimen." Silence filled the chamber. "This is a Prime Guardian variant." The room erupted in shocked whispers. According to ancient Vakesh records, such creatures appeared only once every several thousand generations. They were stronger, faster, smarter. But their most important trait wasn't physical. It was psychological. Prime Guardians formed an irreversible bond with a single companion. A bond so strong that the creature would defend that individual with absolute loyalty. Historical records described them as living weapons that no army could control. Because they did not serve masters. They chose protectors. And once that bond formed, nothing in the galaxy could break it. The Vakesh officials stared again at the paused footage. At the moment when Nova stood protectively between Emily and the pirates. The archivist exhaled slowly. "We discarded her." Another official looked horrified. "And now?" The archivist closed the report. "Now she belongs to humanity." Back on Atlas Station, Nova rested comfortably in the habitat chamber. Emily brushed her fur slowly while the scientists continued studying the creature's latest scan results. Dr. Carter leaned against the observation console. "So," one researcher said quietly, "what exactly did the aliens give us?" Dr. Carter looked through the glass at the enormous feline resting beside his daughter. Nova opened one golden eye. "Watching. Protecting. Waiting." He answered softly. "I think they gave us something they didn't understand." Outside the station, news of Nova's existence spread quickly through pirate networks, military command centers, and diplomatic channels. The message was simple. The predator once considered weak had become something far more dangerous. Because it wasn't just a powerful creature anymore. It had a purpose. It had someone to protect. And in every recorded moment since the pirate attack, Nova had never left Emily's side. The galaxy was beginning to understand something important. The aliens hadn't just abandoned a predator. They had accidentally given humanity a guardian. The pirate attack changed everything. What had once been a quiet research project on Atlas Station suddenly became the most discussed biological discovery in the galaxy. Every major government requested access to the footage. Military strategists analyzed Nova's movements. Scientists debated the meaning of her unusual genetic structure. And the Vakesh coalition, who had originally discarded her, remained silent. But on Atlas Station, life continued much the same. Emily still visited Nova every afternoon. She still brushed her fur. Still read books beside her. Still talked to her like she was the most normal companion in the universe. Except Nova wasn't small anymore. She was enormous. Standing on all fours, the sleek black predator now reached the height of a small transport vehicle. Her muscles rippled beneath glossy dark fur that shimmered faintly like polished metal. Her golden eyes seemed sharper every day. And yet whenever Emily approached, Nova's terrifying presence softened immediately. Her ears relaxed. Her tail swayed slowly. And the deep rumbling purr returned. Months after the pirate incident, Atlas Station received an unusual request. The Galactic Council wanted to see Nova. In person. The council chambers were filled with representatives from dozens of alien civilizations when the transport shuttle from Atlas arrived. Security teams stood ready. Not to stop Nova. But to protect everyone else. The massive chamber doors opened. Emily walked inside first. Beside her padded Nova. The room fell silent. Every alien in the chamber instinctively leaned away from the enormous predator. Even the armored Vakesh delegates shifted uneasily. Nova's presence filled the room like quiet thunder. Her paws moved silently across the polished floor. Her golden eyes scanned the chamber calmly, observing, measuring. Then she sat beside Emily, perfectly still. The council leader finally spoke. "This creature is responsible for eliminating the pirate raiders on Atlas Station." Emily nodded. "She protected me." The council leader looked at Nova carefully. "She obeys your commands." Emily shook her head. "No." Several delegates exchanged confused looks. "Then how do you control her?" Emily reached up and scratched behind Nova's ear. The massive predator immediately leaned into the touch and began purring loudly. The deep vibration echoed through the chamber. "We don't control her," Emily said simply. One of the Vakesh officials leaned forward slowly. "You bonded with her." Emily shrugged. "I just helped her when she was sick." The Vakesh archivist present in the chamber spoke quietly. "To a prime guardian, that is enough." A murmur spread across the council floor. Many species had heard the ancient stories. Creatures that would cross entire battlefields to defend the one they had chosen. Living guardians that could not be commanded. Only trusted. The council leader studied Nova for a long moment. "Does she attack anyone who threatens you?" Emily thought about the question. Then she nodded. "Pretty much." The chamber became uncomfortably quiet. Because everyone realized the same thing. Nova was not a weapon humanity controlled. Nova was a guardian that had chosen humanity. And guardians did not serve. They protected. Years passed. Emily grew older. Nova grew larger. Stronger. More intelligent. Wherever human diplomats traveled, Nova often accompanied them. Pirate groups learned quickly to avoid ships carrying the massive black predator. Mercenary fleets changed course rather than risk encountering her. Entire criminal organizations began referring to Nova with a single nickname. The Shadow Guardian. But inside the human colonies, Nova remained something else entirely. A companion. A protector. A legend. One evening, during a diplomatic summit years later, a young alien cadet studying humanity finally asked the question that had been circulating across the galaxy. How did humans tame such a creature? Emily, now an adult ambassador, smiled slightly. She looked down at Nova resting beside her. The enormous predator opened one golden eye lazily. Emily scratched her under the chin. "We didn't tame her," she said. The cadet blinked. "Then how?" Emily interrupted gently. "We cared for her." Nova's deep purr echoed across the quiet chamber. The cadet slowly understood. Across the galaxy, countless civilizations had tried to control power through fear. Through domination. Through force. But humanity had done something different. They had shown kindness to a creature everyone else had discarded. And the creature had never forgotten it. Nova stood slowly beside Emily. Her golden eyes scanned the horizon beyond the station window. Watching. Waiting. Protecting. Because years earlier, a small human girl had placed her hand on the head of a dying predator. And refused to let it face the universe alone. And in return, the universe had gained a guardian. Final echo line. The galaxy feared the predators it created for war. But the one it abandoned became the guardian of humanity.